I'm speaking both as just an average parent interacting in my community and as a coach. Yes, my job is to help people transform and move to a new place in their life. But even as a human being, how am I able to just show up and let that ripple out? Let this aspect of being present, taking pause, being connected with my family, with my friends, with my conversations, and being able to listen deeply and step out of judgment and stop trying to fix everything out there, but really look at what can I do to make that impact? And then ultimately, as a coach, I'm helping my clients to do the same, to really look at, you can't control what's out there, but you have a lot to say about what's happening within your own inner life.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Kim Marie, who's going to share how to listen to our inner wisdom. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from Darren Hardy. You only control 2 things in your life, your attitude and your actions. That's our focus today. What do you love? That's a tough question for some of us. It's a lot easier to say what we don't want, but figuring out what we really want in life is the first step. And then taking action becomes easy, and action creates confidence, and then it snowballs, and then you're living the life of your dreams. No, it doesn't happen overnight. The world is changing, and we're going to discuss that today. I think it's finally settling in that we have a new normal, and there will never be the old normal again. If you think 2021 is going to be a magical new start, I don't know if it's going to happen. A lot depends on having a treatment for COVID, which I think is better in the short term than a vaccine, because we don't know the long-term effects of a vaccine. But if we can treat the symptoms of COVID, keep people out of hospitals and distress-free, then it turns more into having something like the flu, and we can get back to a new normal a little bit faster. I hope school is going well for you. Because of the way my kids kind of changed their learning and the courses we took a few years back, my kids are perfectly comfortable learning online. They know how to handle it. If your teachers are not providing the right platform or material, just go off and find your own. The internet will teach you far more than most classrooms. It's in your control, and it's in your attitude. It comes back to the quote that we started with today. Our guest today is Kim Marie, who is a life and leadership mentor. She's trained as an ontological coach with the Newfield Network. Coaching and mentorship serve as the perfect platform for Kim to blend her diverse background in the realms of corporate, military, nonprofit, government, and small business cultures with the work of human development, life, family, vocational balance, soul making, and personal and professional leadership. Kim's passion for transformational learning and development is expressed through a unique blend of archetypal wisdom, character strengths, and habit-breaking programs that empower individuals to break the chains of old patterns and conditioning and become not only their best selves, but also effective leaders. The magic of this process is that they also become a true self-leader, confident in who they are, committed to what they value, and able to create meaningful change. Let's meet our guest and learn from her. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Kim Marie. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rocky. It's great to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
I grew up in a very small town, and we didn't have a lot. I was the oldest of 5 kids, and it was a lot of mixed messages about money. I think for me, it showed up especially as I became a teenager and wanted to go out into the world and found myself feeling like I had to get out of this small town, because if you're going to be successful, you have to go beyond these limits and be able to do more than what I saw being, happening in the small town. And what I mean by that is, my parents, my grandparents, people worked for the same place for a really long time and didn't move much beyond that. And, I look back at that now and think so fondly of it, but it's interesting how that was quite an imprint early on. And my parents would make even just the slightest side comments about people who had money, like, oh, it must be nice, or, those kinds of things. And it's an interesting thing to consider how easily our kids can pick up on those kinds of subtle comments,
They do. And it's those subtle comments that kind of get ingrained over time and create our money mindsets. And then here you are 20, 30 years later, wondering why you're stuck. And it's because you spent your entire, childhood getting ingrained with those concepts and beliefs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was definitely true for me. I think, I made a lot of choices as a young adult based on the idea of money, or the idea that money meant success. And so I spent a lot of time kind of learning to not trust myself, not follow my heart, not pay attention to what was important to me, because I was following all the shoulds, if you will, the shoulds of what would make one successful. And, whether it was choosing a college because that's what I thought I should do, or the degree path that I chose because I thought that's what I should do, or, working in different companies thinking that's what I should do, rather than really saying, what's in my heart? What do I feel more deeply within myself? And where do those passions and values and longings, where might they lead me? And what might happen then?
And you know what? We'll dig into that a little bit more. Before we do, just out of curiosity, are you doing anything different to teach your kids about money and life?
Well, I am, I hope. I think it's interesting because we have these imprints for a very long time, and having children, of course, puts things back in the mirror in front of us, if you will. We start to see the things that we learned, and maybe we realize what we've said or done with our own children. And so for me, it's been about trying to recognize those things in myself and then let my kids know that, first of all, the heart and following their heart and their values is most important, that we don't have to listen to what our cultural standards or status quo says is quote unquote success. And for me, it's also been about teaching them responsibility and helping them to understand, what do we really need? What is enough? And so my oldest son, for example, became an entrepreneur at the age of 12. And he's an amazing, gifted artist in different ways. He does woodworking and builds things and writes music and things like that. And so his first business was opening up a booth at a craft fair and selling his woodworking. And he did that for a few years and really got to understand, like, okay, materials to build things cost something, and I can price them in a certain way, and I can interact with people and pay attention to what do I really love doing and not doing. And so that's been how I've approached it, is trying to look at it holistically.
And I think that is a big part of it, is looking at it incomplete, because too often I think we look at things in slices and silos, and then we make bad decisions, which come back to kind of what you were saying before of you lived your life doing the shoulds. And I think today people have more choices, but then it is also a struggle. You know, if you're a young kid and you go out and you're spending an inordinate amount of money on college, and your degree is not something that's going to pay you back, you almost start out stuck. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the heart versus the money versus what's enough?
You know, what I find, my oldest son, he will be 18 in a couple of months, and he has one more year of high school. And he's already saying, you know, this is the entrepreneurial son that isn't sure if he wants to go to college. He's really he's bringing those questions that you mentioned of, you know, do I really want to go and spend all this money on a college education, perhaps end up in debt with student loans? And, you know, I have this entrepreneurial spirit. Might there be other ways? And so I think part of bringing the heart, specific to your question, is really, especially when it comes to our kids, but even for ourselves as well, is asking the deeper questions within ourselves. You know, I cannot tell you how many clients I've had where I will ask them, what do you want? What do you long for? And they can quickly tell me what they don't want, what they don't like, but they have a really hard time naming what they actually want. And so I think a big part of getting to the heart is to get to know yourself, know what you love. And reflecting that into what I teach my children, I notice it's amazing. I'm so passionate about human development and child development and how we go through these stages that make us who we are. And watching my young boys become, you know, young men and move into adolescence. And that's a phase where we do start to listen to all the shoulds, and we start to lose sight of what we really want. And we start to worry about what everybody else is going to think. And so we lose that connection to our heart and the integration of our hearts and minds and our guts, you know, our intuitive knowing that helps us stay connected with that heart piece and helps us say, what do I really want to do? Instead of just diving into the shoulds.
And I see a lot of the same things with my clients. Is it's a lot easier to say what you don't want to do. And so I tell people, write down all the things you don't want to do. Because if you have the list of what you don't want to do, you start to close off options.
Yes.
And when you start to keep closing options, it allows more space for new options to open up. And it also allows you to not make mistakes in the sense of you don't follow things that you know you're not going to like, but you didn't think through. Yes. That you weren't going to like them. And so it helps you to make better decisions. But you're very right, because I think what happens is most of these kids are told at the end of 12th grade or at the beginning of 12th grade, you have to make a decision. One of those is, are you going to college? The other is, if you're going to college, what are you going to go learn? Or are you not going to go to college? Are you going to go try something out? And society puts a lot of pressure to say, well, if you don't go to college, you're almost a failure, right? You weren't
Absolutely.
Smart enough. And so it takes a lot for an 18-year-old to be able to make those choices and be able to stand up for that. And half the time I tell my kids, like, don't go to college. Why don't you not go to college?
Yeah.
Why don't you just go out and do something? Why do you need to, you know, there's ways to do that. And I think they want to take the easy path, which is to go enjoy 4 years of college. And if you can do that, it's great. Not everyone can, but I think we need to at least be appropriate that it's an okay journey to go the other way.
Absolutely. I love that you're saying that, Rocky, because honestly, I don't know a lot of people that will say that so boldly because, again, the shoulds in our culture often say, oh, no, if you really want to be successful in life, you need to go to college, and a college education is what you need to have. And I'm doing the same thing. And I never in a million years thought I would be doing that. I grew up thinking college is what I had to do. And in fact, not just state school, but a private school. And my family didn't have the money. I completely took out student loans and tried to figure out a way to put myself through school and was saddled with that debt. And I do not want that for my kids. And yet I believe in education wholeheartedly. I am an eternal learner, but I read tons of books. I've taken lots of certificate courses. I've gotten tons of experience. And I think experience speaks so much louder than a certificate.
It does. Taking action and doing something, like you said with your son, he's out building something and then he's communicating with people. He's learning how to get them to hand over their hard-earned money for something he's created. So he's learning how to fill a need in society. And that is essentially how the world works. And so I think what's happening is the world worked one way at one point and it changed. And yet it takes a long time for everyone else to change with it. When I went to college was pretty inexpensive. Now it's astronomical. And so the value proposition has changed. And the other thing is, because the world is changing so fast, what I was seeing is that the colleges can't keep up with the change. And so, as you said, these certificate courses and these other things, like people out in the community that are teaching at a faster pace and more at the cutting edge, because by the time the college creates the curriculum, it's already obsolete.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, my oldest son, both of my sons, my oldest is going to be 18 and my youngest is going to be 14 and a half. And my youngest is starting his journey with some of this. And he also is an artist in a more traditional sense. He loves drawing and is incredibly gifted at it. And they both are looking at, how can I learn more? And the first thing they do is they search YouTube and they go asking for mentors and they look for other ways of learning, or they simply practice. They have a good work ethic to dive in and practice and not wait for someone else to, figure it out for them or tell them what to do. And I think that's a really big piece of what we need to be teaching our children these days, is that they need to be responsible. They need to know how to figure things out. And when they start to realize that they can do that, they also begin to realize how empowered they are to learn so much and seek out what it is they need to learn if they don't know it already. And
that's a skill set for the current times. And that skill set is not being taught in schools. And I think, we'll see how this year goes and how much things are going to change because of what's going on in the world. And we may see dramatic shifts in how people value school and how they learn and how they do things. So it'll be interesting to see that turning point. So you ended up in corporate. You did the shoulds. What happened?
Yeah. I just kept feeling so restless, for lack of a better word. I felt I have an aptitude for both right brain and left brain abilities, if you will. I actually have a mathematics degree and was doing the corporate thing in the cubicles, analyzing statistics and economic data and financial data and all of this, and then felt just this longing for more creativity. And I ended up going back to school thinking, well, that's what I'll do. I'll do something in creativity. So I got another degree in interior and environmental design. And again, worked in top design firms. And so again, it was still this corporate world. And I started to realize it wasn't so much what I was capable of or what I was able to do or what degrees I had, but really how I was applying it. And for me, the corporate realm just wasn't where I wanted to do it. It felt disconnected. I felt like a cog in a machine, and I felt like I wanted to do more of kind of a hands-on approach, if you will, working more directly with people. And yet with a diverse set of skills, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do and how I would do that. And then ultimately I discovered coaching and found that it was a perfect umbrella under which I could share the skills that I have and the experience that I had in terms of relating to lots of people from lots of different walks of life and professions and experiences.
And so I noticed on your site, you talk about being an ontological coach. What does that mean?
So there are different coaching programs come from different angles. Like there are some coach training programs that are focused on solutions-based coaching. An ontologically based coaching program is about our way of being. Our ontology is our way of being. And so the training that I got, I really loved because it looked at our thinking, our feeling, and our actions. And how do we integrate and bring those into coherence with one another? A lot of coach programs are very much about the thought process, where you're solving problems and figuring things out and maybe learning some basic communication tools and things like that. And then some coach programs will go into the emotional realm. A lot of them aren't necessarily wanting to touch that because it starts to feel a little too like therapy or something like that. And then very few coach programs will also integrate the body and the somatic realm so that we're tuning into what's going on in our bodies. And ontological coaching looks at all of those and looks at weaving those together.
And we have to have alignment, right? I talk about harmony in a lot of areas, and that's essentially what you're doing. You have to be in alignment, because when you're not, that's when you have all the issues, right? And the stress and the anxiety and everything else. Exactly.
We so often will be nodding our head yes, but inside every cell in our body is contracting and we really mean no. And, we have this thought maybe that I should say yes, but I really don't feel like it, so our feelings and our thoughts aren't integrated and coherent. And so much of that is really about not being present to our full essence, our full existence, every aspect of our being.
Well, and I think a big part of that is distractions. If you're constantly looking at the phone or being bombarded with a million emails and everything else, you don't have time to just be, right? To think, to be at peace. And I think I've become much more aware of all of those types of things. We turned off the TV a long time ago. We got rid of cable, so I don't have all that blaring noise in my life. But still, there's still sources of noise that I need to keep continuing to little by little shut down and remove.
I agree. I haven't owned a TV in, oh my goodness, I think about 15 years. And so, yes, I totally am with you on, even though I don't own a TV, I still have my computer screen. I do a lot of work online, teach courses online and things. So we're online, right? And there's still distractions. And that's where just the importance of what are we going to do to slow it down? There used to be a time when we could wait at a stoplight, wait for a bus, wait in line without scrolling through our devices. And those moments of waiting were precious. And I don't think we realize what a gift they really were.
And that's probably why you're longing for that small town feel again, right? The ability to slow down. Exactly. Yeah. Events of this year have certainly brought a slowdown to a lot of people. And I know my hope is that we're all looking at that and saying, what's really important? What do I value? And, what really matters? I have a client that she has a child with special needs and she has had all these activities for him here, there, and everywhere. And she said to me, I don't know. I don't know if I really need all of these things for him now that they're all not happening like they used to. And maybe I don't really have to have them to have the quality of experience. Certainly special needs, we have so many amazing programs for special needs people in general, not just children, but than what we used to have. But to what degree are we bombarding our children, our adults, with so much that, just like you said, it keeps and perpetuates the noise? Turning off the noise is a big one. So I notice you talk about this and maybe you can help me understand it, but what does it mean to awaken your inner wisdom?
So, I think when we coach from our own experience, our own wounds, our own understanding. At least I hope so. I know there are some people who coach and maybe don't even have the experience, but for me, I feel like I came from this place of not trusting myself. I think that's where the root of it is. Feeling, I mentioned the shoulds, but it also is about not believing that my own intuition might be able to offer me some guidance or an answer that I've been looking for, or the capacity to be decisive in my life. And so for me, awakening your inner wisdom has a lot to do with standing in your truth. What do you feel? What is your experience? What does your body tell you? What is your heart saying? Are they in coherence with one another? Are you coming from that place of your essence and what you value?
Because we have so much other noise, we've turned off the noise of our body, because when you're stressed, you can feel it, right?
Yeah.
And when you're joyful, you can feel it. When you have anxiety, you can feel it. But I think we've stopped listening to those signals, and we kind of need to get back to doing that and connecting with ourselves in a space. Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is the tuning in to the whole aspect of our being. And what I mentioned before, this idea that, my gut's telling me one thing, but my head's telling me another. And how do we slow down enough, get quiet enough, stop? I mean, another big thing that I think is huge around this is the ways that we numb ourselves. You mentioned this idea that we don't tune into it. And instead we numb when we're feeling uncomfortable or frustrated or anxious or indecisive. What do? We reach for the glass of wine, we reach for the refrigerator, we, run a marathon because that's just the only place where we can feel comfortable, or worse, we get into things that are very self-destructive. And so much of this is about being willing to be with what's happening.
And so I think the result, and I know you talk about that, is to create calmness, to increase confidence, and to remove our self-doubts.
A lot of it is recognizing it. I say that I help people kind of move out of this sea of overwhelm and self-doubt and self-betrayal. But sometimes we don't even know we're in the sea. We're drowning in the sea. And so we don't even see that overwhelm and self-doubt and self-betrayal is destroying our relationships. It's compromising our health and well-being. It is making it very difficult for us to see that we're completely misaligned with our vocation, and what we're meant to do in the world. And so sometimes it's simply about helping people to see that they're drowning, to see that, look at this, look at what kinds of costs this sea of overwhelm and self-doubt is costing you. And then go from there to look at, okay, now that you see where you are and maybe some of what's causing that, where do you want to go? Where do we want to go next?
So how do we help people transform?
Oh, it's such a big question. I think we could look at the question of modalities. There's tons of modalities out there, right? And I think so much of it is about being present to others. I think, for me, it's about walking the talk as well. I notice that I am able to have some of the biggest impact in the work that I do because I show up and I practice what I talk about, and then that inspires others. And so I think a lot of it is we have to stop looking out there at what we want to fix and make different. I'm speaking both as just an average parent interacting in my community and as a coach. Yes, my job is to help people transform and move to a new place in their life. But even as a human being, how am I able to just show up and let that ripple out? Let this aspect of being present, taking pause, being connected with my family, with my friends, with my conversations, and being able to listen deeply and step out of judgment and stop trying to fix everything out there, but really look at what can I do to make that impact. And then ultimately, as a coach, I'm helping my clients to do the same, to really look at, you can't control what's out there, but you have a lot to say about what's happening right within your own inner life.
All the answers we need are found within. We just have to have the courage to face the mirror.
Well
and
said.
Deal with that. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. So you have a program that somewhat helps people. You have a winter journal. Is that correct?
Yes. I have published 6 editions now of this journal called The Sacred Nights of Winter. I've personally been working with these nights and journaling, for like 14 years now, and found it to be incredibly powerful. And my own way of doing it evolved over time to where I, on a whim, started creating journals for my community here, and over time started offering them out more broadly. And it's really a powerful, the journal is worked with during the darkest time of the year. And I always say that we don't go visit nature. We are nature. And so when nature is having its cycles, we're a part of that. And when we try to go against that and ignore that, we often end up with far more challenges than we have to. And during these darkest nights of winter, even ancient traditions have talked about how there's an opportunity for us to get quiet, to be with questions, to open ourselves. And you can see this reflected in the various celebrations of the coming of the light that we have in different wisdom traditions, and the 12 days of Christmas. And the journal I have it does work with starting Christmas Eve through January 6th. And so it's actually 13 nights. And the first night is kind of an entry point. And the next 12 nights actually correlate to a month in the coming year. And the journal ends up becoming sort of a guidebook for your year after year. And I can't tell you how many times I have been able to go back to my journal when I'm faced with a challenge or some kind of decision to make. And I can look at what I journaled during those sacred nights, and it inevitably helps me in the moment that I need in the year after that.
So is it almost like a plan for the 12 months of the year, or is it something different?
Yeah, it's something different. It's very unique because so I give journaling prompts every year that I put out a journal. There's a new theme. And so there's a page to work with that theme. But each year, I encourage people to record their dreams, to pay attention to the conversations and the interactions and activities they had that day, the moods and feelings they've had, and just journal about these kinds of things. And I give prompts for all of this. I also have people working with virtues. Aristotle talked about virtue as being the mean between the too little and the too much. And I believe that's the dance we do in this life. We are constantly experiencing extremes, and our task is to find the middle way. And so I have these prompts about 12 different virtues through these sacred nights and encourage journaling about those. And often what happens is just in the journaling, like there's a night that corresponds to a month in the summer, let's say. And maybe I'll give an example from my own life. I happen to have been remodeling my home one summer, and my contractor walked off the job. And it was amazing because I was able to look back at my journal for that, that night that I journaled that corresponded to that month in the summer. And I noticed that I had a dream about being betrayed. And of course, at the time I journaled, I had no idea what it would be. what that was about and why I was having that dream or, journaling about this. But what was more important wasn't just the dream, but just my contemplations about it. And through those contemplations, I was guided to make the necessary decisions I had to make to get my house done and finish and settle in and do what was needed in a way that honored my own inner wisdom that I had written about during those sacred nights. So it becomes more of a guidebook, but not a planner.
And that's very interesting. In that distinction between not planning everything out, but having the guideposts so you know the directions that you need to go. What if some of the people who've gone through the program or used the journal, what have they said to you has changed in their lives?
So they say, most of the people that go through it year after year, because they say that, oh my gosh, I can't be without it. I've had people who skipped a couple nights of journaling and they were so frustrated because when they realized how valuable it was in the coming year and they hadn't journaled, they had nothing to go on. And so they talk about how it just becomes this anchor. And it also, I've had people say to me, this time of year, I used to get depressed. I used to feel this huge letdown. And in a way, this is why I got started with journaling too. I loved the holidays, but it always felt like after Christmas, there was this huge letdown, like it was just over. And through this journaling, it's like the whole beauty and magic of the season continues through. And I have something that feels purposeful and meaningful. And people are saying, for the first time ever, I did not feel depressed during this season. And I feel prepared for my year. I feel fortified and like I have something to work with to go into this new year with purpose and meaning.
And I think that's important. We usually do a shutdown at the end of the year. So we don't work for 2 weeks. When I had a corporate job, even my wife, we would all just stop, and we even stopped visiting people because it got to be the hustle and bustle and craziness of the season. I'm like, let's just relax. Let's clean up our year and then let's, get in the right place for the beginning of the next year so that we have that kind of closing of the books in a sense and reopening fresh and rested and ready to take the next steps. And it sounds like that's a big part of what this journal helps you do.
Exactly. It's a path to getting quiet, going within, slowing down and being attentive, being present and definitely getting out of the rat race. I also, I share even the time leading up to the journaling period, how important it is to prepare ourselves. So I encourage people, really think twice before you head out to those holiday parties and decide to fill your calendar with tons of activities. Or, is it possible that either one, maybe you don't need so much when you're shopping for things and maybe you have experiences instead of things that are leading up to that. And maybe some of it is about making it simpler, making the holiday simpler for you so that it's not running here, there, and everywhere and feeling exhausted by the time you hit Christmas Day.
And that's true. We got out of that. When the kids are little, you do that. But as they got older, it was like you already have everything. And whenever you need anything, you just go get it. So what are we really doing? It was nice to be able to step out and to remove ourselves from the craziness of that.
Yeah.
And do that.
And I would argue, too, that even when they're little, it can be simple. I used to have my children, I did celebrate with the idea that Santa came for Christmas morning and everybody has their own traditions. And I think these ideas of simplicity can be woven into whatever tradition you practice. I remember the first time taking my children to see Santa and they asked for one thing. And the Santa that we went to see was like, that's it? Do you have anything else? They were like, nope, that's good. That's all I want. They learned from a very early age that it's like, we just like be grateful, have joy in some one thing that might be of high quality, that is special and meaningful, rather than I remember growing up having an aunt that when she would visit with her two boys for Christmas, oh my goodness, the amount of gifts that she would get for her two boys were more than my parents would offer for a family of 5 children. And it was just over the top. I couldn't believe how chaotic it would be. And I think maybe that was part of what ingrained that in me as well. That the simplicity is actually much more meaningful and peaceful.
And that it is. The problem is we're constantly bombarded with, we need something to have happiness and joy. Like, oh, if you buy this, you'll be happy and joyful. If you have these things. And that's what social media essentially does. It's constantly pushing you for more, 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 more. And that's part of turning off as well, is learning to turn those things off so that you don't have that craziness in your life. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I so agree that we get bombarded with these messages. And again, all the more argument for going inward and tuning in more deeply rather than buying into, it's like we have to consciously listen to those things or consciously choose not to listen to them.
And that is very true. It's a choice, right? We all make choices and we should make them intentionally.
Yes.
So as a coach, I know a lot of people struggle with the whole concept of getting a coach. What have you found has been helpful when people have a coach?
I too have a coach. I believe coaches need coaches. I think coaches can serve as a really powerful guide, someone to help you set milestones for goals that you have. That's a really common reason people get a coach. But sometimes it's also about meeting you, like really having someone that sees you and that is willing to hold space for you. When, many people choose to get coaches when they feel like they're in transitions. And so you see people wanting to shift careers or, explore, okay, who am I really? And what do I really want? And what do I care about? Or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe they've become a new mother, a new parent, and so these transitional times are often a really powerful time to have a coach for guiding you, because let's face it, when we're a first-time parent or when we're trying a new job or when we're exploring a new way of being, it's new, it's unfamiliar. And that's not to say that the coach is going to know exactly how that's going to be for you, but having someone to bounce ideas off of, to ask questions of, to glean wisdom from based on their experience, and to be able to help guide you with some kind of direction so that you can help take steps toward where you want to be. Coaching is very much about moving from where you are to where you want to be. It's not about, rehashing the past. We might use the past to inform what we want to create moving forward, or what's blocking us toward creating what we want moving forward. But yeah, I think anybody who wants to be able to move forward and have a guide to support them would be, greatly benefited by a coach.
And that's true. Coaching has nothing really to do with the past other than to clear up some misconceptions or to challenge some core values and beliefs that may not be true. It's constantly about moving forward. And I think a big part of it is also accountability. For me, it's surprising how much accountability people need. I've always been told showing up is 90% of the game. And I know that, and I always show up. But I've come to realize that some people need that accountability and someone to be there and to hold their hand and to help them through the friction. And that's probably why a lot of people don't finish the things that they start. And so having a coach will help to ensure that you get done what you want to get done.
Exactly. I love to read, for example, and I can read all day, a lot of concepts. But through coaching, I get to say, here's what I read. I want to bring this into my life. I want to implement this. And my coach can hold me accountable and say, okay, then if you want to get XYZ done and you want to make this happen, then let's create a plan for you, or let's create a rhythm for you, whatever that looks like. And I'm a big fan of both the idea that, to flow in life, we need both the riverbanks and the river, the water to flow through it. And so I talk about this as the sacred masculine being the riverbanks and the form and the structure, and the sacred feminine being the flow and what runs through that form and structure. And a lot of people often veer one way or the other and don't honor both. And a coach can help you be accountable to that proper balance. Like, hey, you're working hard, you're doing this, but are you taking time to take care of yourself? Are you taking time to do some of these creative things you said you wanted to do too, and help keep you accountable to maintaining balance and harmony in your life?
And that's one of the core beliefs we talk about is harmony, and making sure that you're living life in congruence with what it is that you want. Because when you're not, that's when most of the problems occur. And so you've got to figure it out for yourself, take the time, and then go implement. And I tell people, some people can implement on their own and do it. And if you can, great, go for it. But if you're not thrilled with the results you're getting, or you want to get results faster, then put people on your team to help you do that. And that's a big part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't get a chance to cover on the interview?
Oh, I enjoy speaking with you, Rocky. I think we could probably talk all day about great topics like this, but I think, there's nothing that I feel burning in me that we didn't cover in terms of, it's just a beautiful conversation about a holistic approach to life. And I appreciate that.
As do I. I'm still figuring it out myself and constantly tweaking the little levers to see how to do it better.
Me, you and me both.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Presence. For me, it's about being present, because when I'm in the present, I can let things flow, and I'm not blocking or resisting what wants to happen. And then I can be very open to receiving all that wants to come to me. So for me, the abundance has so much to do with presence.
And that's one I'm still working on. I think there's still a little too much noise in my life. And it's, I'm constantly thinking of, what next? And I need to focus more on what now instead of what next.
Yeah.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Oh, I think for me, it's not so much a specific thing as I wish sometimes that I had someone like a coach, like a wise mentor that could have said, it's really all going to be okay. And life will change, and it will have twists and turns, and everything will move here, there, and everywhere. And it's okay if you don't understand, or you're not perfect at it, or you fail, or you mess up. And, having that wise guidance, that's something I really hope that I am offering to my kids moving forward, that they feel that it's really okay to be themselves, that it's really okay to try things and make mistakes and try again and explore what they care about and what their values are, and that it's fine if those things change and evolve over time.
And they will change and evolve over time. The person you are at 20 is not the person you are at 30, is not the person you are at 40. And I think one of the things that age does bring, and now that I'm older, I see the wisdom of it will work out. Things happen. It's just a matter of, do you keep showing up? I think that's where the problem occurs, is when people give up.
Yeah.
As long as you take action and you move forward, it works out. Maybe not the way you wanted, but it does work out.
I so agree. Yes. Yes.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Yeah. For me, that piece, that was the goal that I had for my boys, and I enrolled them in a specific school because that's what I saw the school generating was kids who really, they weren't afraid to be who they are and to trust themselves and believe in themselves. And now that my boys are older, I'm witnessing that in them. And it's one of those things that I remember when I started, I wish I had for myself. And I'm so grateful to be giving that to them. And that's what I would tell any young person: believe in yourself.
And that's very important. We were also very intentional in picking the type of school and the type of atmosphere in the school that we wanted our kids to enjoy and experience. And I don't think we realized then how much the outcomes of that choice would be, but we're glad we made those decisions because the outcomes are astronomical at this point with them. My kids are just a little older than yours. In being able to go out and make choices and live life. And so it's very, very important.
And if I may say, Rocky, on that note, that I love hearing that and kind of circling back to the beginning where we talked a little bit about those choices. I never would have thought that I'd be paying and investing in primary education for my kids and then having my kids talk about, maybe I don't need college. And I love what you just said, because sometimes I think investing on the front end might be the way to do it, because the more we can be and know ourselves moving into the world as adults, the rest of it's going to work out. The rest of it will work out.
Oh, it's very true. And that's why I'm comfortable telling my kids, like, you don't need to go to college. You can go out on your own because you've built a solid foundation.
Exactly.
And because you know how to critically think, because you know how to learn, because you know how to step up and take action, you just have to go do it. I think they're just still like unsure of which direction they want to go. Or part of it is also, I know with my son, it's just laziness. Teenage boys,
Yes,
it's okay. And you know what? I know because we've had the conversation with my daughter and she's still like, well, society says I have to do this. And I kind of don't want to have regrets. Like, I don't want to miss this and then spend my whole life with regrets that I should have done this. And throughout every year of college, at the end of her freshman year, we had the conversation again. She's like, she made the decision to go back again after a year. So she had the freedom to walk away at that point if she wanted to and say, you know what, I tried it. I see it. It's not for me. But she's been able to work it out. And a lot of it is, some of it is what goes on in the classroom, but I think a lot of it is what goes on outside the classroom and learning to navigate New York City and being able to do all these other things. And then it's also the opportunities that being there provide her. So I think that's what she's seeing much more so.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And just being able to help them make their choices. And yes, we have to get through the stages of adolescent apathy and laziness for sure. But I think, again, the more they feel good about themselves year by year, step by step, they start knowing that they have the ability to meet what life hands them. Yeah.
That is very true. If people would like to find out more about your coaching services or learn about how to get the journal, where should they look to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website at kimmariecoaching.com. And I also have a Facebook business page if you want to follow me there. And that is at Kim Marie Community. And you can find me there. And I'm posting pretty regularly. And hopefully that will prove to be an inspiring connection as well.
And I will put those links in the show notes for everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, that was powerful. What are your shoulds? Are they true? How do you know? Are you like me? Do you do what you love? Or are you living small? Are you waiting for someone to tell you what to do? Or are you deciding what you want and going for it? The mirror holds the answers. This week's action step is to get to know yourself, know what you love. And I know that's not easy. If you want to work on attention, go back and listen to Rebel Brown in episode 193. And if you need to take control and understand the power of agency, go check out Dr. Paul Napper again in episode 192. I think this winter is going to be very dark because of the times we're in, and we have a choice. We can light it up. Check out Kim's journal if you need a little bit more light and guidance going forward. We always use the holidays to relax, not to get caught up in the hustle and bustle. This year's going to be a little bit different for everyone. So what's your new tradition? In our next episode, we're going to meet Julie Johnson. Julie is a listener of the podcast, and she joins us to share her wealth and life journey. It's an incredible story. So that brings us to the question, what's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? As always, taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. I can help you achieve your goals through coaching and accountability. Just use the scheduling link in the show notes to get started. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.